Rotom Mow has literally zero usage competitively, but it's definitely better than people think. First of all, it has the pretty unique electric grass typing that it only shares with Hisuian Electrode, and it makes for a fun time offensively. But in terms of stats, it's pretty well rounded. Its big defenses don't end up being great because of the low HP, but it's got solid base 105 special attack, and its mid-tier speed makes it a great option for some shenanigans. So here's what I like to do. We can run a Choice Scarf, making it outspeed most threats, and this makes it pretty sweet for fast pivots that hit harder than you think with Stab Volt Switch. The real fun comes in with Trick, being able to pass off the Choice Scarf to defensive Mons and make them pretty much useless. The cool part is that while Rotom's here for a utility role with Trick and things the Scarf, it can also opt to be an offensive threat at the same time. Its Stab Leaf Storm is able to grab surprisingly big damage, along with Stab Thunderbolts. So Rotom Mow is just a menace that always ends up putting in some unexpected work on people, and today, the grass is about to get mowed. In the opposing Pokemon of the grass. Look, Rotom Mow has to be my favorite Rotom appliance. Not only is just a goofy looking dude, but it always ends up seeming to put in more value than you expect, and while it's not the kind of guy that you think is going to be the star of the team, it seems to end up that way. So today we're going to show some love to everybody's favorite Pokemon that's also a lawnmower, and if that sounds like a fun time to you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free, it only takes you a second, you can also not, and that'd be fine too, and let's get into it. Alright, so my opponent decides to lead off with some Dippin' Dots, which is an appropriate nickname for Porygon 2, and I've got myself a Rotom Mow who's mostly here to get a quick Volt Switch with a Choice Scarf. However, as I'm looking at it here, I'm like, you know what? This is a perfect opportunity to steal this thing's Eviolite. Porygon 2 entirely relies on that item to be bulky, so I can take that Eviolite from it and be like, yeah, no longer will you be a bulky rubber duck there. Also, now that gives me a potential opportunity to trick that to something later that doesn't use it. But on that turn, they click the Trick Room, and that is scary, because looking at their squad, they have some big, slow sweepers. They got the Blood Moon, they've got things like Hariyama, and under Trick Room, things are going to get a little tricky. So, I kind of thought that they would stay in and go for an Ice Beam, but it turns out they end up swapping. They bring in the Glimmora, which is nice, because now as I get a Pivot Volt Switch, I do some big chip, and also, now I can get a better matchup against the guy. So, considering the Trick Room is up, I've got a couple different things I can work with that, and the main thing is Fat Squirrel. I can bring in this obese Pancake, who is obviously slow as hell. I'm slower than everything they have, so I can use their own Trick Room against them, and that's always a fun time. So, I decided to go for a Curse. That's going to make me not only even slower, but also boost up my physical defense and attack, and you already know what this Squirrel's about. If you haven't seen the Greedent video, go ahead and check it out. So Glimmora is there to just go ahead and set up some Stealth Rock, which is fine. I am reluctant to touch the thing, because of course it is going to put some Toxic Spikes on my end, but I figure if I can set up the Squirrel for essentially free, I'm always going to take that opportunity. So, knowing that I am going to be speedy under Trick Room, I can go for a Gyro Ball, which does knock the thing out. Important to note, Gyro Ball does still keep its damage even under Trick Room. It doesn't consider the fact that it rolls reverse, so I am still considered slow. Gyro Ball takes care of the Glimmora, which is great, and while it does set up some T-Spikes on my end, I figure that's a pretty good trade. So, here's the thing, now they end up bringing in Hariyama, and ordinarily I'm thinking I could go for a Terra Fighting, and then I can hit it with a Body Press, but it's not quite going to do enough, and also I don't know if I want to really commit to the Terra quite yet. So instead, I decide to swap into the Garchomp. That's just because I know I can take an attack barring an Ice Punch, and then it touches me with my rough-ass skin and Rocky Helmet, and basically Charles is not the kind of guy you want to touch. So they do go for the Drain Punch, does some considerable chip, but just destroys it in return. And the best part is the Trick Room is going to go away on the turn that I swap this thing in. So dimensions return to normal, Garchomp is back to its speedy self, and as the Hariyama does get its Flame Orb, this is definitely just a full kind of Trick Room physical sweeper Hariyama, and that tubby boy is kind of scary. So I decide it's probably my best bet to just set up the Stealth Rock. I'm going to break potential sashes, but also I realize it's going to have to touch me again, and Hariyama really is not a threat as long as Trick Room isn't sticking around. So they go for one more Drain Punch, which is great because I do live it, and then they have to take some Rough Skin and a Rocky Helmet again, so it kind of negates what they heal back, but then I get the poison to knock me out. So down goes the Garchomp for not a whole lot of value, but I got my rocks up, got some chip on the Hariyama, and now I get myself a matchup. So they do take some continual burn chip. This thing's sitting at about half, and the fella's pretty thick, but I also realize I should kind of address the Toxic Spikes, at least considering the Glimmora is gone. I'm free to rapid spin him away. I do have to go into the Quaquaval here, who does take the poison right on my sausage toes. And I at least can now go for a rapid spin. Get rid of those. It's gonna get rid of the Stealth Rock and the Toxic Spikes, which feels nice. Plus, they don't have much that wants to swap into the Water Duck here. So I do my Water Peacock nonsense, get rid of the hazards, which is always great. Now I do have to take an attack from the Hariyama, which is gonna be a Drain Punch. Boosted by Guts, still does not have enough to knock me out, which is fantastic. But in the process, they of course get some health back. And after the Burn Chip, I'm looking at it, and Quaquaval does look pretty valuable in this matchup, but I've kind of used up a whole lot of my opportunity here. I only have 2 more turns basically left of poison in me, so I figured I can just go for a close combat here, should have enough to be able to knock this thing out, and then I don't have to worry about a Hariyama coming back and tricking him. So they do stay in, I punch it right in its blubbery legs, and that's going to take care of it. So down goes the Hariyama, which has got to be one of the weirdest mons, I don't know, but takes care of that, which is always great. And while I do get my Moxie, Quaquaval still has some value here. They can't go into Porygon 2 to set up Trick Room, and with the Moxie boost, thing is scary. So I do have 1 more turn left in me of the poison damage, and now as they end up bringing in an Ursaluna, I'm thinking there's 2 options here. Either they defensively tear into a Ghost, or they have the Vacuum Wave. Now I'm definitely thinking Vacuum Wave is coming my way, so I decide to swap this thing out. Could be valuable later for 1 more attack left in me, considering they don't have any more hazards. So I'm thinking Buddy's ass is grass, and it's about to be mowing time. So I bring in Rotom thinking there's going to be a Vacuum Wave. Turns out to be Calm Mind, which is far more scary. They make the nice play. They're going up for the Calm Mind instead of the priority. But now look at this. I go for the Leaf Storm because obviously I'm faster, and even with +1 special defense, that is going to be able to take care of it. Ursaluna Blood Moon does not have great special bulk, and even at +1, a Stab Leaf Storm is able to just straight up knock it out, which is insane value from the mower. So that's probably the scariest thing out of the way that can take advantage of Trick Room, which is nice, and great to see the bear dead. So now on the Revenge swap in, they can bring back in the Porygon 2, who is, even though it doesn't have its Eviolite, it's still going to be nice here because I took that minus from the Leaf Storm, which is fine because I'm thinking it might just be Mew time. Now, if you have not seen the Mew video, I recommend you check it out. This is a wild Mew who is here to transform into stuff and basically stop opponents from playing the game entirely. So as I come in, they do click the Ice Beam. Not sure exactly what this thing's moveset is. I figure it's probably standard with Trick Room, but I'm going to bait this thing to stay in. I'm going to go for the Imprison. Now that's going to seal all moves that we share, of course. And my next plan is to first be able to take an attack and not get frozen. We did not get turned into freaking pink popsicle. But also now I can then transform into the Porygon 2. And while I did not get my Fire Spin off, I figured just transforming into this thing might not be a bad call. I'm hoping they have Recover on their moveset, because if they do, I can just continually recover and we're going to be in a great spot. So I transform into it. It now has no ability to go for an Ice Beam because it is sealed via Imprison since I'm now them. And after some leftovers, we're looking pretty damn healthy over here. Legs are spinning, it's a good day to be a shiny duck. So, looking at the moveset, they do have the Recover. And I'm like, if I could use their own Porygon 2 to reverse sweep them, that would be kind of sweet. So, I just decided to go for the Thunderbolt here. I'm thinking just damage on the Porygon 2, and they are kind of forced to swap. So, looking at things they could swap into, Honchkrow does not want to come into a T-Bolt, and that ends up being perfect. Down goes the Crow. And we grab a free kill there. That thing was definitely going to be a room service, like Trick Room Moxie set that I've been messing around with, and that feels pretty nice. So Mew is over here being a Porygon, just doing my best rubber ducky impression, and we are feeling pretty nice about that. So they've now got 2 mons left. It's going to be the Porygon without Eviolite, and they have the Skeledirge. So as Skeledirge comes in, I figure I can just continually throw some attacks at it and whittle it down. But they're going to head out. They say, I don't want to play with that Mew nonsense, and they just straight dip. So that is going to be the end of that one. Thought that was a super interesting match just to kind of see a lot of the stuff on this team. It doesn't fully get to like completely shine, but it's really interesting matches here. So that's now going to bring us into game number 2. And look, as always, if you've stuck around this far into the video, I will ask, go ahead and hit that like button. It's easy to click. You just click the button. It's really not that hard, unless you don't have hands. Which case, I don't know how you got to this video, but go ahead and hit that button for me, and let's get into the next game. Alright, so I will say this one ends up being a doozy, and Rotom clutches it like I've never used it before. So, as they lead off with a Garchomp, I decide to lead Mew. Now, one thing about this Imprison Mew set is, if they go with a Stealth Rock lead, I like to try to click Imprison if I'm faster, and then just block them from setting up their Stealth Rock. But of course, Garchomp is just a bit faster, and as I go for an Imprison, it turns out they just click the Earthquake, which is fine, get some chip on me, but you know, I'm max HP, I can at least take 2 of them. And then as I'm looking at it here, I'm like, you know what, why shouldn't I just transform into this thing? It is going to get another attack off just because it's faster, but oftentimes I'm like, you know what, I'm going to lead with this Mew and just see what I can get it to do early. So they click the Scale Shot and it misses, which is incredibly clutch, and that's why all my homies hate Scale Shots. And it's pretty damn lucky. So now, as I transform into them, I now get to see what they're working with. I assume it's loaded dice Garchomp, and why that's bad for me is because I do not have the loaded dice, and relying on Scale Shot is not going to be great. But I'm going to click it anyway, and here's the thing. I clicked the Fairy Terra completely on accident. A lot of the time I'll just kind of hit the right bumper and then just unclick it. I did not unclick. I did not need to do this. I accidentally used the Terra, and now I've got myself into Fairy Terra where they can't even use an attack because it's been straight up imprisoned. So this time I outspeed, which is great. I win the speed tie here. And I only hit twice because I don't have loaded dice, which is annoying. So I get the defensive drop, but I get the speed raise that comes with it, which is nice. And now they double cannot touch me. It wouldn't be able to even use Scale Shot because, of course, I am Fairy, but it's been imprisoned, and that was a waste of a Terra. I blew it. I'm not even gonna lie. But now I gotta see. Now I have to try to win this match without even using a Terra, which is fine. So they struggle against me, which is hilarious because then they touch my Mew's Rough Skin, and then they just decide to let the Garchomp die. Grabs a free kill here, which is great. So down goes the Chomp. I kill theirs and then turn into it. So now it's like, I am the Chomp now. Look at me. I'm the captain now. So Transform Mew doing transform things is always fun to see. While I get another speed boost, the bad part is I don't have any offensive raises. I was really hoping it was going to be Swords Dance on there so I could take advantage of that and then just entirely sweep them with their own Chomp, but it's not quite going to happen that way because as in comes our Chaladon, this staple remover bastard has the opportunity to go for a Terra Flying, and I figure if they bring this thing in against me, it probably has it, but since I've already used up an accidental Terra, I am going to play it safe here and just click the Earthquake. Now, they do go for the Terra Flying, and that's a little bit unfortunate, but here's the thing. The reason why Earthquake is kind of a good neutral play here is because if they did Terra, that's fine, because in the back, I figured that opens up the game for Rotom. I can much more easily take care of this Archaladon at being Flying type rather than it being its regular typing, so I'm kind of fine with that. Now, as I do Earthquake, obviously don't touch it, and then they finish me off here, so down goes the Mew, but that still puts me in a great spot here because I can bring in the Buzzaroonie, and this thing has an interesting swap in here. So here's the thing, of course, they know that a Thunderbolt is gonna absolutely bop the guy. They want to stick to physical attacks, but a Thunderbolt kills it. Now, looking at their squad, I know that they have a ground type in the form of the Crocodile in the back, so instead of going for the T-Bolt, I'm instead going to click Leaf Storm, which looks bad, but they end up swapping. I try to make the prediction to bait in the Crocodile, and they do end up swapping, which is, first of all, a great sign. It does end up being the Crocodile, which is amazing because I connect on a Leaf Storm, and that is going to take care of it, and that is a very scary threat out of the way, and the prediction pays off for us. So this thing is not generally built to be like a full offensive guy, but Leaf Storm's connecting on stuff just does so much damage. So the bad news is this. I get the kill on the damn Crocodile, but now they get a really good, potentially game-changing swap in to a Baxcalibur. And here's the thing. I know it's going to Dragon Dance, and this thing is an absolute threat. So I decide to switch into the Weird Ear, who can go for an Intimidate. And this thing is going to be clutch for a couple reasons. Because I know that it's going to click the Dragon Dance, which it does. So after that Dragon Dance, they don't have an attack boost because of the Intimidate. So it's really only sitting at +1 speed. But not only that, I am going to be Mirror Herb. So I'm able to take both the attack and the speed boost. And now Weird Ear is in a pretty damn good spot because without this thing having an attack boost, I should be able to live one attack from it. And as they go for an Icicle Spear, Buddy's just throwing loaded dice nonsense all over the place. And I'm thinking, please, neutral hit, be able to live, Weird Ear. This thing doesn't do a lot of things well, but it only hits 4 times. I'm able to live, and then I get myself an Agility, which is just about as good of a spot as you can be in with this Weird Ear. So barring this thing having Ice Shard, I can now go for a Stored Power. With all these boosts and stab, a Stored Power is gonna hit pretty damn hard. So I get up that Agility, we're sitting at +1 attack, +3 speed, and they end up swapping that thing out. They probably do not have the Ice Shard. Look, in comes the Skeledirge. They go Skeledirge because this thing's Unaware ability allows it to not care about stat changes, but we're technically not using any stat boost. With Stored Power, it's just getting power based off of what we have there, and Unaware does not take that into account. And 2 of them is going to be able to kill it. So Skeledirge, that's probably the easiest Dirge I've ever killed. and it was by a Weird Ear. So that's just like kind of a double win situation there, and that's pretty sweet. So while Weird Ear's on a little bit of a roll here, here's the problem. In comes Feraligatr, and while I know this thing has potential to have an Aqua Jet, I can go for a T-Bolt, but without any special attack boost, it's not going to do much. It does do a little bit more than a stored power would, and I get some great chip. However, it can then just live it and then finish me off with an Ice Punch. So, you know, down goes the Weird Ear. But the good thing is I stopped that Feraligatr from going for a Dragon Dance, and that's one of the biggest things. So that feels pretty good. And also, guess who does really well against physical attackers? That is going to be our Fat Squirrel. I can bring in Pancake here because we love when things are physical attackers against us. I can go for what feels like a free curse. And the reason for that is because their liquidation doesn't do, I mean, it does a decent amount. It brings me down to near half. But after a curse boost, they are kind of in a bad spot because while they can touch me again, that's going to put my fat ass in Citrus Berry range. And check it out. They go for another liquidation, which is great because now Squirrel's like, ooh, lunchtime. I pull out a Citrus Berry. That's going to give myself a nice little quarter chunk. And then Cheek Pouch is going to be able to activate. That gives me another third. And we're back to essentially full. And then I fire off a Body Press, and that's a dead Gator. So love to see it. Buddy's also got a whole bunch of Gators, by the way. But now, look, Greedent is in a great spot, too. This team has so many opportunities for random shit that can set up. And Greedent is now kind of the guy. So bad thing is, Archaludon is not generally a great thing to hit with visual attacks for obvious reasons. And as they go for a Flash Cannon, they can hit me on the special side. Does do a decent chunk, and my Gyro Ball is not even going to do half, and it's going to give it a stamina boost. So as Greedent almost got his nut for the day, it's feeling like it's probably not going to be my best option here. I'm also thinking that, you know, rather than just wasting the Greedent here, what I can do is get a free swap into the Rotom. And while they do not any longer have, you know, the ground type swap in, Rotom's kind of free to just click Thunderbolt on stuff. So that feels like a safe bet because knowing that they're just going to Flash Cannon again, I resist it. I can live that easily. And now it's time to go T-Bolton. So look, they have 2 Mons left. Obviously, it's going to be the Archaludon. And then in the back, they have one of the scariest Mons being the Baxcalibur. So first of all, I killed the Archaludon with the T-Bolt, which is great. So that defensive terror they used ended up working out in my favor. Down goes the Staple Remover. And now we're in still not the greatest spot because they got 1 Mon left. But again, it's one of the scarier setup Mons. With the loaded dice, this thing is a threat. They go Baxcalibur knowing that this thing is going to Dragon Dance. The bad thing is I do not have an Intimidate swap in. But I've got myself a little bit of a plan here, and here's what we're going to do. I go Garchomp. The reason for that is because I know they Dragon Dance, but I really just need to bait this thing into killing the Chomp without, you know, getting up another Dragon Dance. With one Dragon Dance, Rotom Mow with a Choice Scarf can still outspeed the thing. And the plan is going to come into effect here in a moment. So Garchomp baits in the Icicle Spear. They're basically forced to attack or they take a Dragon Claw, which is great for me. So down goes the Chomp, but that was just a pawn in the plan anyway. Now, looking at what I have left, a Baxcalibur at +1 kills everything with a combination of Glaive Rush and Icicle Spear. So in order to be able to stop that, here's what I'm going to do. I decide to go into Rotom here, and again, knowing that I am max speed with a Choice Scarf, I can go for a trick here, and I'm able to outspeed, giving this thing a Choice Scarf, not only removing its loaded dice, but also locking this thing into whatever it clicks, meaning that it can no longer then click a Glaive Rush against something like my Quaquaval. So they go Icicle Spear, which is exactly what we wanted them to lock themselves into, and we use up the Rotom at the cost of getting rid of our Choice Scarf, which is going to be extremely clutch, because now, of course, this thing is faster, but it's now locked into Icicle Spear. It no longer has a loaded dice, and I can go into Quaquaval, who should be able to take at least one of them, and then end up killing it with a close combat. So they have to go for Icicle Spear. Without a loaded dice, it's not going to do enough. It's not going to hit enough times, likely. But look at this. They end up getting at least 4. I'm like, what is going on here? I took away this thing's dice. It gets the 5 hits even without it, but luckily we're able to live. And then as I can go for the close combat, beat the hell out of him, and that's going to be the end of the match. So down goes Baxcalibur, and the little kamikaze trick at the end there was the only reason why I was able to pull out the W on that one. So shout out to Rotom, yeah, for that tech. So that's going to do it for the video. Thank you guys very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. A lot of the time, these mods that I don't end up, you know, trying to be the star of the team, end up coming in pretty clutch. And these are interesting matches where it's like you can tell that the teams that I'm working with, they have specific guys that are, you know, try to get crazy setups, but In these matches, it doesn't feel like there's certain situations where, like, you know, the full Mon deserves the full spotlight. So Rotom came in clutch on this one, so Buddy gets his own. And thank you guys for watching. I will catch you guys next time. Peace out.